It's a pleasure to have our friend Senator Ted Cruz on. Ted Cruz, the Department of Justice is refusing to give the House Judiciary Committee the videotapes of Joe Biden's interview with Special Counsel Hur. I can think of no separation of powers argument now that that investigation's over and there's been no criminal charges for withholding that. Can you? I can't think of any.
No, but that doesn't give even the slightest pause to this Department of Justice. This Department of Justice, sadly, has proven to be the most partisan and political Department of Justice we have ever seen. You and I are both alumni of the Department of Justice. DOJ has a long and storied tradition of staying out of politics, of enforcing the law regardless of party. And I'm sorry to say, Merrick Garland, when he came in, threw all of that in the garbage. And we have seen under this DOJ, number one, a blatantly differential standard of justice, that they go and target the enemies of the White House and use the force of government to go after them. But number two, front and center, I think there's no priority this DOJ cares about more than protecting Joe Biden personally. So, of course, they don't want the videos of that deposition released because that would damage Joe Biden. And this is a political operation. They behave like they're the enforcers of the DNC rather than the U.S. Department of Justice.
Now, along those lines, the Supreme Court stated emphatically that Joe Biden doesn't have the power of the purse. This is basic stuff. It actually belongs to Congress, specifically the House, because like Mussolini wants to issue edicts. And he's issued edicts now that have resulted in almost $400 billion in student loans, student loan forgiveness going to individuals who aren't paying their loans. And now he says he has another way to work around the Supreme Court, maybe it'll be another $1 trillion. Is this not, again, utter lawlessness?
Absolutely it is. And I got to say, this is a trifecta. Number one, Joe Biden's student loan giveaway is screwing working men and women in this country. I think the most consequential political shift of the last decade is that Republicans have become a blue-collar party, and concomitantly with that, Democrats have totally abandoned working men and women. This student loan giveaway is screwing every truck driver in America, every steel worker in America, every plumber, every electrician, every construction worker, every waiter, every waitress. Every blue-collar worker in America, you're being told, guess what? We're going to take your tax money. We're going to put national debt on your shoulders to pay off the loans for some woke gender studies major, because that's the new base of the Democrat Party. That's number one. It's screwing blue-collar workers. Number two, as you noted, it is utterly lawless. When Joe Biden tried this before, it was an effort right before the last election in 2022 to buy votes. It was an effort to give away money to buy votes, and the Supreme Court reversed it, resoundingly reversed it, and said, no, the president cannot just give away $1 trillion because he wants to. It has to go through Congress and be legislated, and the Biden White House knows this. But that leads to number three. This is a cynical election ploy in which they're trying to fool a bunch of young people to come out and vote for Biden, and they know they're lying to them. They know that it's not going to happen. They know it's not going to survive. They know the courts are going to strike it down, but the Biden apparatchiks don't care because they think young people are stupid enough that they'll fall for the same game. It's like Lucy and Charlie Brown and the football. So they're screwing blue-collar workers, they're being lawless, and they're lying to young people because they think it will buy them votes in November.
They talk about this bipartisan bill constantly, and I don't want to beat a dead horse here. Or like 3 Republican senators voted for the thing. Even McConnell, who's the invisible hand behind it, didn't vote for it. That is to secure the border. It doesn't secure the border. Any of the funding would have been in 2028. And there's basically a red button in that law that essentially Biden can press that button and pretty much do whatever the hell he wants to do, just claim a national emergency, correct?
Look, this Chuck Schumer bill was a terrible bill. It was not a border security bill. In fact, it was the opposite. If it had passed, it would have made the problem worse. Why would it have made the problem worse? Because it codified, it put into law Biden's catch-and-release policy, which is lawless. It's produced this crisis. Not only that, but it codified, it normalized 5,000 illegal aliens a day. That's 1.8 million a year, nearly 2 million a year. in perpetuity, forever. Not only that, it gave billions of dollars to sanctuary cities. It gave billions of dollars to NGOs that are complicit in the human trafficking. Not only that, it gave work permits to illegal aliens when they got here. Not only that, it gave taxpayer-funded lawyers to illegal aliens as well. It was a terrible bill. Chuck Schumer wrote it. Why? Because he wanted to put into law all of these open borders forever. And listen, there's a reason that once the bill text became public, it failed within less than 24 hours, because everyone looked at it and said, this is a joke. But you know what the real purpose was? Political camouflage. It was to let every Democrat say, well, gosh, I would have solved this problem, but the mean old Republicans wouldn't do our bill to do it. And the media is completely complicit in that lie. And it's a lie that is entirely about politics and has nothing to do with securing the border.
You know, Senator Cruz, you're not buddies with all these radicals in the Senate, but you see them operate. You're certainly committees with them. This guy, Chris Van Hollen, has become one of the most outspoken opponents of Israel. Yeah. One of the most outspoken proponents of Hamas. And the bottom line is, if you're for cutting off aid to Israel, then you're for supporting Hamas. During your time in the Senate, have you ever seen Chris Van Hollen jump up and down about our funding of Iran or Hamas or the PLO or Hezbollah in the Biden administration? Is he leading some kind of effort to stop that?
Well, sadly, yes, I have seen him jump up and down about funding for Hamas and for Iran and the PLO and Hezbollah, but it's jumping up and down in favor of it. When he speaks on the issue, he wants to send them more money. And I'll tell you, and look, Mark, you care passionately about Israel, about America's national security, as do I. One of the things to understand, the problem is not the squad. It's not the radicals, the Ilhan Omars and the AOCs and the Tlaibs. Now, they are anti-America radicals who are dramatically undermining our safety, but the problem is not those fringe characters. The problem is the so-called mainstream of the Democrat Party. The problem is Chuck Schumer. The problem is Joe Biden. The problem is Nancy Pelosi. It was Chuck Schumer who stood on the Senate floor and demanded that the democratically elected leader of Israel be thrown out. Chuck Schumer, the Senate Majority Leader, is utterly disgraceful. It was Joe Biden who went to the UN and orchestrated a resolution effectively denouncing Israel. And now it's Nancy Pelosi vocally saying, let's cut off cash to Israel. And it's because today's Democrat Party is terrified of their radical base, and functionally they are all in bed with the anti-Israel, anti-Semitic radicals that now is the Democrat Party.
You know, Senator Cruz, it seems like everything that's good is attacked by Biden. It doesn't take but a few years to destroy what it took 200 years to build.
Yep.
And we've seen that with Marxists, we've seen it with Islamists, and the Democrat Party seems to embrace both Marxists and Islamists. The Democrat Party was the party of the Confederacy. We know the whole history of this party. This is an autocratic party in many respects, is it not?
Look, it absolutely is. That they are united by their belief in power, their belief in government power, their belief in totalitarianism, their belief in government power over you, over your life, over what you say, over what you believe, or over whether you worship, over your ability to defend your family. And fundamentally, today's Democrat Party is a cultural Marxist party. And whether it is the Marxists or the Islamists, they are united by their hatred of America and their hatred of Israel. And they hate them both for the same reasons. Look, I actually really lament, Mark, what has happened to today's Democrat Party. I think our country needs two functioning political parties. I think we need some sane and rational Democrats, and they have chased the moderates out of the party. I mean, it says something. Look, on Israel, John Fetterman has been extraordinary. I'm going to praise John Fetterman as being the only Democrat that I can tell willing to speak out in favor of Israel, but it's such a contrast to the rest of the Democrats. And I'll point out my Democratic opponent, Colin Allred, the extremely left-wing Democrat congressman who's running against me this year, has stayed utterly silent. So he won't answer the question whether he supports Chuck Schumer demanding that Benjamin Netanyahu be thrown out. He won't answer whether he supports Nancy Pelosi cutting off money to Israel. He won't answer whether he supports Joe Biden getting the UN to condemn Israel. He won't answer whether he supports the radicals demanding an immediate ceasefire in Israel and using U.S. power to try to force Israel not to kill terrorists anymore. That, sadly, is where the Democrat Party is.
Mm-hmm. And the Democrat Party is also spending like drunken Marxists. I mean, yes. We have these reports out. You know, we've got warning signs everywhere. We've got pots and pans being banged by people who actually look at this. We're reaching a point of no return where the interest on the debt's bigger than the defense budget, and in 10 years it's going to be absolutely impossible to start to pull back. I don't see any way out of this right now. Do you? You got Biden in the White House, Schumer and what's his name? Yeah, right. McConnell running the Senate. You got a 1 or 2 vote lead in the House. I mean, we're kind of stuck right now.
Listen, we are stuck right now, and for the next 9 months, it's going to be ugly. The good news is that there's only one way out, and that is win in November. We need Donald Trump to win to throw these lunatics out of the White House. We need to win a majority in the Senate, and we need to grow a majority and get a real working majority in the House. And I think we can do that if people wake up. Listen, I would call on everyone listening to this. Everyone who listens to your show, Mark, they are great Americans. They're patriots. They love this country. If we're going to turn it around, the only way to do it is win in November. And that means standing up. That means talking to your friends. That means talking to your family. And it also means standing against the massive influx. You know, you mentioned a minute ago my race. Chuck Schumer has made clear I am his number one target in America. Chuck Schumer and George Soros are going to spend over $100 million trying to defeat me. And the way that I survive against that massive influx of cash are patriots across the country who go to our website. It's tedcruz.org, tedcruz.org, and you go to the website and you give $25, you give $50, you give $100, or we've got a lot of people who are in what we call our Liberty Circle, where they sign up to give a recurring contribution each month, 10, 20, 30, $50. That is enormously consequential. And in terms of my race, if you want to make sure that I'm not defeated and replaced with a radical left-wing Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer puppet, then going to tedcruz.org and supporting our campaign is desperately needed.
Yeah, we can't wake up on election night and you're lost and some of these other guys are lost and Trump's lost or everything is lost. We can't turn Texas over to the Democrats. You know, it's not like the old time, you know, they used to call them the, what did they call them? Whatever, the Democrats. But these are radical leftists. You know, they really have no place leading a state like Texas. And the reason they have to raise $100 million is not to get him name ID, but it's to lie about who he is and lie about who you are. That's how they win.
Yep. Well, that's right, and they cover up their record because as a Democrat, you can't run on your record. Joe Biden hides in his basement. Colin Allred hides in his basement. They don't want to talk about their open borders and what a disaster that's been. They don't want to talk about out-of-control inflation. They don't want to talk about out-of-control crime. Then they certainly don't want to talk about foreign policy. Joe Biden inherited peace and prosperity. We've now got 2 simultaneous wars. So instead what they do is they just go to big-pocketed billionaires, whether big tech billionaires or George Soros, and they lie. They lie to hide their record, and they lie to engage in relentless attacks. And it's why, you know, on our end, I'm supported just by individual Americans who go to tedcruz.org and say, we're going to stand up and fight, and we're going to take America back. And I believe if we do that, I think November can be a very good election, and we don't have much time left, I don't think.
No. You know, I asked Thomas Sowell, last time he was on my TV show, I said, Tom, do you think the country's going to survive? And he said, Mark, I'm not sure it is. I don't think it might. And so this is how serious it is, because he's one of the great thinkers, one of the great icons. And when you reach his age, you don't have to mess around. You can spell it out.
And you and I both revere Thomas Sowell as one of the great thinkers. You're right. And we're at a moment in time Look, on the upside, if we have a great election in November, it could be fantastic. If we've got Trump coming back in the White House, we've got Republican majorities in both houses, we could see a lot of big, major things accomplished, including historic tax cuts, because the tax cuts are all expiring. But I'll tell you, that's the upside.
Well, that's important. Hold on right there. People need to understand that. Their taxes are going to shoot up.
Massively.
Explain that briefly, if you would.
Well, in 2017, when Trump was president and we had Republican House and Senate, we passed historic tax cuts that helped create millions of jobs that produced the lowest rate of unemployment in 50 years. It produced the lowest African-American unemployment ever recorded, the lowest Hispanic unemployment ever recorded. Those tax cuts are scheduled to expire in the next couple of years. And so if Joe Biden and the Democrats are in charge, they'll let them expire, which will be a multi-trillion-dollar tax increase on working families, on job creators, a massive blow to the economy. If we win, we'll extend and grow those tax cuts, which will benefit Americans across the country. That's the upside. The downside, though, if God forbid Biden is reelected and the Democrats win the House, then the Senate is the only bulwark between here and utter destruction. And Mark, let me tell you what happens. Let's assume, I don't want this to happen, but let's assume it's a bad election in November. And let's assume every Senate seat that is up stays status quo. So all the Democrat seats stay Democrat, all the Republican seats stay Republican, except one change, which is Chuck Schumer and the Democrats gained 3 points in Texas. Last time, I won by less than 3 points. They gained 3 points in Texas and beat me. Let me tell you what happens in January of 2025. The first thing Schumer does is end the filibuster, the requirement that you have to have 60 votes for major legislation. Schumer has 49 votes for that right now. He needs one more, and he can end the filibuster. If he ends the filibuster, let me tell you the next four things Schumer does. Number one, he passes S1, the first bill that he introduces every Congress, which is a federal takeover of every election. It strikes down every voter fraud law in the country. It strikes down photo ID laws in the country. It legalizes ballot harvesting, and it registers millions of felons to vote. The second thing he does is he adds 2 new states to the union, D.C. and Puerto Rico, because Democrats believe that'll give them 4 new Democrat senators. The third thing he does is grants voting rights and amnesty to every illegal alien in America. The instant he does that, Texas turns bright blue. Texas turns into California when 20 or 30 million illegal immigrants become voters. And the fourth thing he would do is pack the U.S. Supreme Court, add 4 left-wing justices, grow the court from 9 to 13. Now, Mark, I am constitutionally an optimist. I believe better days are ahead of us. If that happens, I don't know any way out of it. I view that as a system-ending event. Great nations rise and fall. I think that's how America falls, and we are literally one vote away from that.